Hello again. It is Crew Call here on the Motor Racing Network, taking you into the garage area and talking to the folks that make the race cars go around the racetrack. I'm Steve Post, pit road reporter for Motor Racing Network, joined by 25-time and championship-winning crew chief Todd Gordon. Hello, Todd. How are you?
I'm great. Just got a phenomenal Darlington weekend. You couldn't ask for any better.
No.
Hottest race of the year, 500. I mean, that's just a grind. And really, we had two cars that were the class of the field.
Right. Absolutely. And one of those cars won the race.
Yes.
And locked themselves into the playoff. Let's talk a little bit about that. Stewart-Haas Racing, of course, Chase Briscoe. Todd, we talked so many times on this program about putting together a weekend. That is a team that put together pretty near flawless weekend.
Yeah. Qualified third. And I think the worst, outside of the pit cycles, I think the worst track position they had was fourth or fifth. And all day long. They were the one car. I said that too, but the 5 car and Kyle Larson, I've seen this before. He dominated the race, and his long run speed was phenomenal. But for 25 laps, I felt like the 14 car was on his tail in a place that he's at an aero deficit. I really think. Spot, yeah. I think if Chase Briscoe had gotten clear of Kyle, I would have been interesting to see how the race played out, because for 25 laps, I thought Chase Briscoe had equal to or better speed than the 5 car.
They thought that way too. It was reflected by the conversation when Ross Chastain, because they came out of pit road second.
Yep.
And when Ross Chastain stayed out, they're like, oh man, I'm telling you what, we thought we were going to be side by side, and they thought the same thing. They ultimately did it. I think from the driver's perspective, to go toe to toe with Kyle Larson and to hold off a charging Kyle Busch at the end of him, this is a pretty defining moment for Chase Briscoe as well.
Yeah, he did a great job. Yeah, I mean, he executed the last 16 laps, and Kyle had come like gangbusters from, I think, 8th or 9th to get to second. It was 2 or 3 laps, and he got there, and he was running him down pretty hard, but Chase didn't fold under pressure. I was impressed. He put together the last, 15, 16 laps and didn't make a mistake, and really drove the race he needed to put himself in the playoffs.
What does this say about the men and women working at Stewart-Haas Racing? Because they're in lame duck situations. They're job hunting. They're worried about their future. And now they're running for a championship with that 14 car, by the way, also. It's just pretty cool.
It speaks loud. And really, Stewart-Haas Racing, if you looked at it, the 4 car had a ton of pace.
Yep.
He got an aggressive position trying to split 2 and wrecked. Ryan Preece drove up into the top 10.
Yep.
And ended up, 12th or something like that. Noah Gragson had a top lead lap run for a race that didn't have cautions other than stage breaks, really, until we got to the 3rd stage. It's easy to get a lap down. And so all of Stewart-Haas has done a great job. I think it speaks volumes for everybody continuing the path and not giving up on the program.
Really, truly is neat, that's for sure.
Richard Boswell.
Yes.
First win.
First career win for Richard Boswell, and there was a lot of emotion when I climbed up on the pit box and talked to him post-race. They are celebrating down here on the pit box. Richard Boswell, he is just beside himself. A career first win for Richard Boswell, the crew chief. Greg Zipadelli coming up and congratulating Richard. Congratulations. You are a Cup Series winner, a Southern 500 winner, and a playoff driver.
I don't know what to say, man. Only thing I know to say is this one's for my dad. He passed on almost 2 years ago now, and a little over 2 years ago, and I haven't been able to make it to victory lane since, and it's been killing me. So this one's for my dad.
There we go. Man, oh man, his dad, Dickie Boswell, a short track legend. Richard Boswell, racer through and through, and now he's a winner in the Cup Series as a crew chief. First time for the win here for Richard Boswell and his driver, Chase Briscoe. The first win, it's just really special, isn't it, Todd? Your first win, it is really true. And to have it be the Southern 500 when it matters so much.
Yeah, and not only double that, have it be a playoff cutoff race and the Southern 500. I mean, just so much pressure in the weekend, but this group's done a great job, and you love to hear the emotion. And you understand the family heritage.
Yeah,
he didn't just decide to be a crew chief. That's been in his blood.
His dad, Dickie Boswell, a short track legend, raced a lot of his time at Old Dominion Speedway up in Virginia. 57 Busch Series starts back in the 80s. That was the Xfinity Series, 4 top 5 finishes. Richard actually raced a little bit, ran Hooters Pro Cup, had 1 Xfinity start, but he's been with Stewart-Haas since 2017, been in the crew chief ranks. The thing I find interesting, 9 career wins in the Xfinity Series. 6 of those wins came in 2020 with Chase Briscoe driving.
Yes.
There are combinations. There's a lot to be made about combinations.
And this pairing was put together mid-season last year. They kind of shuffled things up and brought him forward to work with Chase again, knowing the success that they had in the Xfinity Series. So great to see it. Really love the passion, love the emotion, and a great win for those guys. And it'll be interesting how this plays forward for the playoffs.
See what they do. So the win for Stewart-Haas Racing and Chase Briscoe kind of upset the apple cart. The apple cart that was already upset because the week before it was the Wood brothers getting the win, and that's where we're going next on the program. We're going to talk to Jeremy Bullins, crew chief for the Wood brothers, on their historic win last week at Daytona. So stay with us. Jeremy Bullins, he joins us next. Welcome back. It is Crew Call here on the Motor Racing Network, and let's go up to Wood Brothers Racing, Team Penske headquarters, where it all happens with that 21 car. Jeremy Bullins joins us. Hello, Jeremy. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good.
We are loving that we get a chance to talk to you about this, Jeremy. It's about 10 days removed now, but the win for the Wood brothers, win number 100, Daytona. Just 10 days later, what's the feel, what's the vibe, what's the sentiment after getting that big win at Daytona?
The fact that we were able to get the 100th win for the Wood brothers still hasn't really sunk in. It was pretty special to be a part of that. Haven't been a part of the 99th win, and I was working there for the 97th. So it's pretty cool to see it kind of come full circle, I guess. When we were with Blaney and got 99, we wanted to get 100 and didn't get it before Blaney got moved to the 12 car. So to be able to go back and get the 100th was really special, especially as intertwined as my career has been with the Wood brothers. So,
yeah, I mean, just your relationship there, and that's with the Wood brothers. It's goes back. You brought up 97. You were an engineer back in the early 2000s and kind of played through some things there. And you talked about that 97th win as well, right?
Yeah, I was. I joked that that year I just started going to the track with the 21 because I started at the Wood brothers working on John's late models and Hooters Cup cars and whatever. And so when I started working with the 21, I joked about that Bristol race. I was trying to convince Lynn that an Excel spreadsheet was the right way to do fuel mileage, and he had his notepad and his calculator. So we had old school and new school doing fuel mileage that day, and it turned into a fuel mileage race. So it was pretty good memories from that one as well.
That's fantastic. The Lenwood notebook or the Jeremy Bullins Excel spreadsheet. I love it. That is for sure. I saw Leonard at Daytona, or I saw Leonard at Darlington this week. They are salt of the earth people. The depth of the rewarding to be able to give them that number 100, Jeremy. Can you just go a little bit deeper? I know you've talked about your relationship with them, but they are just NASCAR royalty. That just has to be personally rewarding.
Yeah, I've said it a couple times throughout this week, but the Wood brothers to me are the one thing that hasn't changed about the sport. A lot's changed since I've been involved. A lot's changed since the sport started, but the Wood brothers are the one thing that's consistent. That team's been here the whole time, and hopefully continues a long time into the future. And got a little bit of sleep Saturday night after Daytona, but the best text message I got when I woke up was from Leonard to hear how excited he was, and a text message from him was pretty awesome, and obviously great to see him in Darlington.
And really cool. And I know your passion for speedway racing. I've gotten to work alongside of you. I think you do a really good job of it. I know it has been there as well. The win at Daytona puts you in. We start this round of the playoffs with a pseudo speedway race at Atlanta. Talk about that going forward.
Yeah, it's kind of those races I feel like have been the strengths of the Fords. You see a lot of them qualify up front, race up front. The fuel mileage side of it and the strategy side of it comes into play. I think that's something we've done a pretty good job as a team and with our alliance cars at Team Penske. And it's another opportunity for us to try to run up front. We ran well there in the spring, and I feel like it's a race that we can go capitalize and hopefully score some stage points and try to keep moving forward here.
Yeah, and we talk about it this round: Atlanta, Watkins Glen, Bristol. That's from my days. I used to look at this first round and just say it was a base hit round, right? Just don't shoot yourself and just put somebody will. How does that change now, your approach to this round with kind of the outliers you've got in it?
Yeah, I think that's still true. I mean, I think, a lot of people talk about not making mistakes in the first round and just trying not to take yourself out of it. And I think that's true. I think, Atlanta is a big wild card because anything can happen. Things happen fast at Bristol as well. You can get caught up in something really quick there too. So, but at the same time, I look at Atlanta and Bristol as opportunities for us. We were really good at Atlanta in the spring. Had a lot of speed, just, had the tire issues that bit us a couple times. But, if all that goes away, I feel like we'll be really good at Bristol, and I feel like we'll run well this week. And I wouldn't say the road courses have been our strengths, but I still think that's somewhere that we can go have, like you say, a base hit kind of day and, maybe score some stage points and just kind of, take care of it from that side there and just try to get a decent finish.
Jeremy, as we focus in on Atlanta this weekend, what's your expectations as far as track conditions, how that track has evolved, another summer of sun? What's your expectations of what you guys are going to see when you get down there on Saturday?
Yeah, I think, anytime there's a repave and you go through these heat cycles, Darlington's getting back to what Darlington used to be, right? So it just takes time and it'll change every time we go there. It'll be a little bit different. And I still think with the, as Todd said, the pseudo speedway configuration, I still think, handling will be less of an issue than it used to be at the old Atlanta, but it'll eventually start creeping back into where you got to work on your car a little bit more and more. But I think for the most part, it's just going to be, it's got to drive pretty good, but it's got to be a trade-off of speed and driving good.
So as you talk about this, when do you feel like you need to start to see a practice come back to an Atlanta Motor Speedway? I know speedway-wise, we went away from it because it was nobody wanted to do it, nobody wanted to jeopardize a car. But as you talk about that transition, are we a year or two away from really needing to have practice to get going for the weekend?
I would say so. I think those changes to the track, they take a little bit of time, but we'll see. We'll have a better feel for it after this race and, seeing how the summer's treated the asphalt and all those kinds of things. But, I think eventually with the speedway package, it's hard to have a practice because nobody wants to go out there and risk tearing their stuff up in practice to racing and drafting together or whatnot. But, we'll just see how the track evolves over time. If it gets to the point where we feel like we need it, I'm sure everybody will start jumping up and down asking for it.
No doubt about it. When we look at speedway racing, we've had some subtle changes in the rules, some various things with the fin on the back of the car. What have you guys noticed that impact was at Daytona? What's your take on that so far?
I feel like maybe at the beginning of the race we were a little bit tighter than we expected to be with the shark fin on the back glass. Just a little bit of side force there probably, but it wasn't a huge change by any means. Just made a small air pressure adjustment and kept going. But kudos to NASCAR for trying to implement something to keep the cars on the ground. Obviously, we still saw cars getting off, airborne at Daytona. So, it wouldn't shock me if we see some different things down the road here as they try to figure out how to keep the cars on the ground. And, it's just part of it as the sport evolves. We've seen changes forever trying to avoid that.
Yeah. And disclaimer here, we're recording this on Tuesday. So it's before NASCAR. As you guys went to Daytona, I think it was Wednesday night, you got the information of what you were going to do there with aerodynamic changes in that rear window deflector. But so we could see it yet this week. How do you as a crew chief, how do you gather data to know when something like that changes, how it's going to affect the balance of your race cars? Do you get an opportunity to get some information on that? Have you gotten information since the Daytona run to understand maybe how that's going to affect going to Atlanta?
Yeah, it just depends on the timing of it all. It depends on when you find out what you have time to do when your next wind tunnel test is scheduled. The guys in the aero group can do some CFD runs and get some, estimates on what they expect it to do. And honestly, that's the fastest way to get a result. And, a lot of it just depends on the scheduling. But yeah, we feel like we have a pretty good idea of what that change did for us and what it would do, with a different spoiler size and things like that. We've been able to look into that a little bit.
Cool. Cool. And one other question, I guess, and this is curiosity from my side, asking another crew chief, because I kind of looked at it and saw it. We saw 3-wide racing at Daytona, which we haven't seen in quite a while. That third lane came into play. Do you feel like that rear window deflector had any impact on that from maybe the wall and what was happening there? Is that changing how racing happens, or just aggressiveness of it being an opportunity to win?
I feel like the fuel mileage part of the game has as much to do with that as anything. I think whenever the first 2 lanes are saving fuel, guys can jump up top and run wide open and not, worry about saving fuel as much. And you can get to the front because the guys on the inside and the middle lane are saving fuel and not running 100%. So I feel like when you see that third lane really working, that's a bigger product of the fuel mileage as anything. I'm not going to say that truck fin didn't have some effect on it, but I feel like the aggression level of the other guys and where everybody's at in the fuel savings game plays a big role in how effective the third lane is. Usually when the bottom lane or the middle lane decide to go wide open, it kind of hurts the third lane. So really it's just a product of that, I think.
Jeremy, I want to go big picture on something within the teams and the way the teams work. You said our wind tunnel time, okay? In 2024, as we sit here right now, big picture, how does wind tunnel time work now with the teams just across the board?
Yeah, so it's all it's all based through the OEM. So Toyota, Chevrolet, and Ford get X amount of hours, and so the OEMs kind of work with the teams to perform the tests, and all that information is shared throughout the OEM partner team. So the testing that the testing information that we get is the same information that the other 4 teams would get. So, we're able to work together and present ideas to the group to go get tested, and then everybody shares that data.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's very similarly done across the Chevy and Toyota teams.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to me how that has evolved and how that's changed. It used to be every team would have every car in the wind tunnel every week, it seems like, and it's just the way that's changed. It's been fascinating the way that's evolved.
Yeah, it's I think a lot of it's cost savings, to be honest. I mean, there was over time we've spent a ton of time in the wind tunnel, and a lot of I'm sure a lot of teams are in there testing redundant ideas and doing the same things over again. So it makes a lot of sense to kind of share that information across the OEM teams, and we can not be in there as much, and it's a way for NASCAR to police it as well as for the number of hours that each team gets. So it kind of keeps it a little more balanced across the sport.
Jeremy, final question for you. Have you had out that dirt late model lately? Or are you where's your dirt late model program at?
The dirt late model is kind of sitting on jack stands right now. Maybe we'll get it out this off season. But as you see me on a lot of Tuesdays at Millbridge, we're still trying to help my nephew get going as much as we can and working with him on his outlaw carts over at Millbridge. So most of my extracurricular time racing is spent with him now instead of the late model.
I kind of knew the answer to that because I see you out there on Tuesday nights, and I love that you're out there with Gabe, your nephew, Gabe Yacano. Jeremy, it is always a pleasure. Congratulations again on that very special win with the Wood Brothers, and we can't wait to see what you guys have in the playoffs starting at Atlanta this week. But thanks for joining us here on Crew Call.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
There we go. Jeremy Bullins, Wood Brothers Racing crew chief, joining us here on Crew Call. Stay with us. More in just a moment. Welcome back. It is Crew Call here on the Motor Racing Network. If you like what we're doing, why don't you subscribe to our MRN channel and share it with all your friends on your social media platforms. Like these, rate, review, all of those fun things that helps more people see what we're doing here on Crew Call. And what we're doing on Crew Call and in NASCAR, Todd, is we're going playoff racing.
Yes,
man, oh man, we've been talking about this. 16 teams ready to go. We have talked over the last month or so about this dynamic first round. Well, let's do it. Let's get this thing teed up. What's your big picture take on what we're going to see here in the playoffs?
Chaos.
Imagine that, yeah.
Because you look at this round, and now with Atlanta kicking this off, I'm glad I'm not a crew chief.
Yeah.
When I looked at this schedule, to me, Atlanta's a question mark. I think, as we talked to Jeremy right there, they feel like the Fords are pretty good at these places.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They've been really good. They've had pace. They haven't executed all the time. They've been, because we've had a lot of wrecks. I think the Gen 7 car is the fact that cars, there's not that bubble between cars. It doesn't seem like we used to have. And that makes more contact, more physicality, and more excitement. How about that?
Yeah.
But you look at this round, I just, who comes out of this round with who, as we talked about, the base hit piece, who can come out of Atlanta with a decent points day? And then they set themselves up for, I'm going to go to Watkins Glen and try to score points. I'm going to go to Bristol and be all right. Watkins Glen will be interesting. I think flipping the stages plays so that there's some playoff guys that will say, Jeremy talked about that, stage points. You may go steal stage points to try to help advance to the next round. So I think there's a lot to be done in this first round.
Well, and then Bristol, look at what we had in the spring up there with the whole tire situation.
And we're bringing the same tire.
Oh, God.
So I've talked that they did a tire test up there, and they've worked through it. It depends on how the track gets prepped.
This temperature sensitive.
Yes.
There's a lot that goes into that.
But as we saw, even throughout that race, people got smarter about how they could manage their tires. It's going to be a tire management race, and one that even the crew chiefs, before they leave the shop, may have to put some thought into how do I take care of my tires a little better.
One of the other things that I think is going to be interesting as we roll through this thing is there's a couple of really good teams not in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Your Randall Burnett and your Kyle Busch. You're not really concerned about stage points, are you?
Last three races, fourth, second.
Exactly.
And you look at it, they have not, like even last week, they were back in 25th to 30th early in the race. They got their car better, worked their way forward.
There's some good teams back there that could win a race.
I mean, there are, and if I had to put money one way or another, Kyle Busch wins a race yet this year.
I think so too.
I just don't think. I think the carrot of being the 20 years in a row of winning a race is too large. And the trajectory of RCR,
correct.
We have seen them, they have made their cars better. They've gotten to the point that they're more competitive. I mean, Austin Dillon, had we not had a caution late in the whole fiasco that followed that,
at Richmond,
he had a 3.5 second lead.
Yeah.
Like he was going to win that race. And then I'm not condoning what happened.
Right. It happened.
But they had the pace to be there.
Right.
Kyle Busch at the end of Daytona was in position. Now he survived some wrecks.
Yeah.
But they've had decent pace. And this weekend, they kind of marched their way forward. They weren't the best car there. No. They might have been a fifth place car, but they put themselves in position. And I think if you can put Kyle Busch in position, going to be interesting to see where it goes.
I think there's that race. I think there's that consecutive year strategy. And I think when you're dealing with Kyle Busch and Richard Childress Racing, there's a little chip on the shoulder of I want to have my face all over the newspapers, so to speak, on Monday morning and let the playoffs do whatever they're going to do. And I just think that that's a dangerous team.
You brought it up. I mean, 2 years ago, Ross Chastain was second in the championship 4. Right. Didn't win this year. Yep. I think he could as well.
There's another one.
Yeah, I think there's several.
Chris Buescher's pretty good, so we'll see.
Yes.
It is going to be fascinating. It really, truly is going to be fun to watch. Motor Racing Network going to be there for a bulk of the races. But this weekend at Atlanta, it's PRN has the race coverage of the NASCAR Xfinity Series and the NASCAR Cup Series. We have weekly shows that we would love to have you tune into here on the podcast platform. NASCAR Live is, of course, our Tuesday night tradition where Mike Bagley and the entire cast and crew of Motor Racing Network gets together. NASCAR Live Wide Open is a podcast version with some additional things. That drops on Thursday. NASCAR Coast to Coast, where Kyle Rickey and Chris Wilner talk to the grassroots racers. We've got Wing Nation, where myself, Aaron Evernham, and Ashley Strummy talk sprint cars. And, of course, NASCAR Crew Call, where Todd Gordon and I talk to all of the insiders in the garage area. So, going to be fun. We'll catch back up, Motor Racing Network, catch back up at Watkins Glen with everybody, but going to be interesting to see what happens this week at Atlanta.
Yeah, definitely. We'll set us up for a great run up there at Watkins Glen. A new tire up at Watkins Glen. Yeah. We're going to have a lot of lap time fall off up there from what it sounds like. Can't wait to get up there and broadcast that one.
Going to be awesome. That is for sure. He is Todd Gordon. I am Steve Post. We are grateful for Jeremy Bullins joining us from up at Wood Brothers Racing. But more important than all of that, thank you for joining us here this time on Motor Racing Network's Crew Call.